Hello, everyone. Good to see everybody here. Welcome to our audio community plugin. This is our third one. Hope everyone's doing well. Today is June 23rd. It's Tuesday. It's noon here in sunny Miami. And wherever in the world you might be, welcome. We are really happy to have everyone here. We've got a great plugin planned for you guys today. So I'm kind of looking at everybody coming in here on the Zoom. So welcome. I see some familiar faces, some new faces or names as well. And I want to say also hello to everybody. We're also streaming to other platforms, YouTube, our Facebook, Twitter, and a few other things, LinkedIn. So hi to everybody, wherever you might be in social land and anywhere in the world. So good morning, good afternoon, and good night, as they say. I do hope everyone's staying safe. My name is Greg Chin. I'm the audio evangelist for Avid. And again, a pleasure to be here. We're going to get right into it. We've got a great panel set up for you guys today. Today, we're going to be focusing on remote workflows in audio post. So obviously with the situation we find ourselves in with COVID-19, a lot of folks like myself and my colleagues, we've all had to start working remotely. We're working from home or working in a very remote type situation, and that's caused some interesting challenges. But I think it's also been a really interesting opportunity. So we've got a really great panel of experts specifically in audio post who are going to talk about their workflows and how they're kind of doing it. So we're going to get right into it, but just a couple of things of housekeeping here really quick before we jump in. So I want to make sure that you guys get the most out of the webinar here, out of this event. So because we have a few different speakers that are going to be kind of going, we want this to be kind of a roundtable type discussion. In the past, we've kind of had, one person kind of speaking at a time. This is going to be a little bit different because we've got some really great guests. So just to make sure, for those of you who are used to Zoom, you might be used to this already. For those of you who are new, if you're here in the room in Zoom, what you might want to do is on the top right-hand corner of your Zoom window, just please ensure that the gallery view is selected rather than speaker view. That way, you'll be able to see all of our guests at one time and kind of watch them as they engage in the discussion and some banter that I'm sure is going to happen. They're a bunch of fun guys. I really can't wait for you to meet them. Also, if you can see any non-video participants in the screen, we've got some folks kind of in the background helping to moderate. Myself, Gil Gowing, Jeff Komar are all here. But if you happen to see that you've got non-video participants on your screen, you can select the hide non-video participants selection so that you can only see folks with their camera on, and it'll be in a much nicer and larger format on your screen. Okay, so we're going to have the ability here in Zoom, those of you who have registered and are here with us in the Zoom room, as they call it, you'll be able to submit some questions. We're going to have some time for Q&A. So to do that, you'll notice in your Zoom menu there is a Q&A icon, and you'll just be able to click that and ask your question. So a couple of things. This is a safe space, but we want to make sure that we're all respectful of each other. Typically over the last couple of events that we've done, there've been a lot of questions surrounding upcoming releases or upcoming features or things that we really can't talk about. So if you can stay away from that, that'd be great. We'll be happy to announce things as they are going to be made available. So let's try and focus specifically on our guests and their workflows and what they're going to be talking about. But as much detail as you can give in your question, we'll get to as many as we can. For those of you who are streaming on other platforms, we've got some moderators that are going to be holding court there. So if you've got some questions, feel free to ask them there. We'll try and get to some of those here live in the room as well. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is here is a list of our amazing panelists from some really great facilities, both in the UK and in New York. But we've got two really great moderators, two gentlemen that I have the honor and pleasure of working with. So I'd like to introduce Dave Tyler and Robert Miller, who are going to lead and moderate our session. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Dave, Robert, take it away.
Great. Thanks very much, Greg. So yes, welcome everyone. We've got a fantastic panel. So we're going to jump straight in, and we want to give everybody a chance to get to know the panelists. So I'm going to introduce Tom, who's based actually very close to me in Brighton. Tom may be a familiar face because we actually did an Avid blogs article on him recently. So, Tom, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you work and what you do?
Yeah, no worries, Dave. Thanks a lot. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us. So my name's Tom Dalton. I run a sound post-production house called Brown Bear Audio. And as Dave mentioned, we're based in Brighton on the south coast of England. So we predominantly work with sound to picture and voice recording across multiple disciplines, from short form commercials and online content to full features and ADR. Prior to the COVID crisis, we just finished an ADR session with Kiefer Sutherland for a remake of The Fugitive, which has just launched on Quibi recently, and we also finished full post on a quirky British comedy called Incidental Characters, which was a lot of fun to do. So I launched Brown Bear Audio back in 2012 with the sole intention of providing professional post services remotely, sound post production services remotely. Prior to this, a large majority of my work as a freelance mixer and sound editor was being done remotely, so it was a natural progression for me to establish Brown Bear Audio. Part of the reason for starting the company was to give producers an easy and cost-effective way to complete their sound post, but also to try and achieve a better work-life balance with the imminent arrival of a family. So as the company has grown, I wanted to harness the amazing freelance talent that's out there working and have their own facilities. And so as we've grown, so has the team. We now have an extensive team of remote sound specialists, allowing us to expand to meet demand for larger projects when necessary, which is great. And yeah, the talent out there is just fantastic. So our typical workflow generally starts with a brief and the client uploading all the necessary assets to us. From then, I'll put together a team of the most suitable talent for the job. So depending on the size of the project, this can be multiple people, dialogue editors, sound effects editors, re-recording mixers, or if smaller projects, it can just be one person dealing with it, as it is for a lot of TV work. It tends to be one person that will deal with it all. And then throughout a project, I'd say 60 to 70% of our workflow is offline reviews that the client can then feed back on via our online platform. And that's our form of notes. They can mark up the time code on the picture, put their notes in, we can address them, and there's a bit of back and forth that way. And then the other 30 to 40% of our workflow consists of real-time review via live streams. So essentially them attending virtual mix sessions, and that's generally for the final mix that happens for sign off and final mix.
Perfect. Cool. And so our other three panelists are all based in New York. So I'm going to hand over to Robert, who's going to take you through them.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. One of the benefits of my 25 plus years here in Avid and New York City is getting to know and in some small way work with some of the most talented creative audio post professionals. And we're really fortunate to have three of them here for our panel today. So first, I'd like to have Avi Laniado from Harbor Picture Company introduce him.
Hi everyone. My name is Avi Laniado, like Robert mentioned. I work for a Harbor Picture Company, post-production facility in New York City. Started there in 2012. Before that, I'm going to go a little bit back. I was working at a company called Sound One. Started there at an entry level in 1984 as a technician. Over the years, I moved up, and toward the end, in 2012, I was the chief engineer of Sound One, which was part of Tadeo Sound Deluxe. And right around that time, some investment company bought the whole group and decided that they have no business in New York. They decided to close it down, and I started my own consulting company and was doing work for different post facilities in New York who wanted to get into sound and or had sound, but they wanted to improve and take the share of the market that someone left behind. My last client was Harbor. They hired me to build their sound facility or sound group from the ground up because they were a young company that concentrated on picture services. And after we finished building it, they offered me to stay with them and become, you know, the chief engineer of the sound facility. A little bit about Harbor. Harbor is a multi-workflow solutions company. We do work for picture services all the way from ingesting to delivery, and we offer daily services for ingesting data on the production side. We then store it and do whatever it needs to happen with it in order to prep it for the editorial department. At the same time, it's being used for starting the conform and color corrections process, VFX, which we offer as well. We also offer the sound services at the same time. We also have a commercial division, and in that division, we do productions, actually shooting and producing commercials, audio and video. So the services that we provide are from very, very wide. And so, fortunately, I have to be involved only on the audio side because on the picture side, we have an amazing tech teams who support that. We have to find different solutions for remote workflow, which is what this session is about. And the challenges for it, I hope I can talk a little bit about it. It varies between what we offer. Saying that, Harbor has multi-locations already. We have 5 different buildings in Lower Manhattan. We have a location in LA. We have a location in the UK. So in a way, we started doing remote work before we even got into COVID. What happened with COVID is that the artists, the people who I work with, left to do some work at home, and the challenges were slightly different, but not much different. I can talk about it later on in more details, but basically that's what I have to tell you.
Okay, thanks, Avi. And next, Ken Hahn from Audio Post at Studio B.
Hi there. Yeah, everybody, I will echo what everyone's already said, but thank you for joining us. Take some time off to do that. If you don't know me, most people, I just say, look me up on IMDb, and you've probably seen something I've worked on. I've been in the business for over 40 years, mostly known as a re-recording mixer, but I do a fair amount of supervision and editing. Back in 1983, I opened a facility called Sync Sound with my then business partner, Bill Marino. That was a 12,000 square foot facility dedicated to audio post for television mostly. And I say dedicated to audio because at that time, that was quite unique to just do audio. And it was a different time. Stereo television was analog. And we got our name from Sync Sound. We were specialists in synchronizing sound and picture. Now we all take that for granted now. It's just the way it is. But back then, it was not for the faint at heart. It was expensive, experimental, quite sophisticated and unreliable. But we tried to change that, and I think that was part of our success. Later on, we got the crazy idea to open a facility dedicated to picture sound for digital sound for films. We called it Digital Cinema. It is another 12,000 square feet facility that is now Warner's, New York. But we were on the forefront of many digital technologies and techniques that have become really part of what we do in audio post. Now, I've been truly blessed to have worked with incredible talent, filmmakers on both sides of the screen. Worked on shows like The Americans, got to mix with Danny Elfman, his music from the films of Tim Burton. May have seen a show, I did the first season of a show called Pee-wee's Playhouse. May have heard of a band called Pearl Jam. We did that, their Unplugged program. I don't like talking about myself, but I will say that I've got 6 Emmys, 4 primetime, 2 daytime, 5 CAS awards, and 2 years ago, an MPSE award for editing. My clientele, I jump to today. 2019, January 2019, we closed Sync Sound. One time we had 50 employees. We were working literally 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Times changed. I had been working home, transitioning to working at home just to cut down on the commute and spend some more time at home. So when we closed that, I became a full-time independent employee of my own company. So it really was started as just to spend more time instead of behind the wheel of a car and spend more time at home. My clientele is quite diverse, with mostly independent filmmakers, production companies, networks and affiliates, or a media arm of a corporation or a foundation. It's mostly broadcast and streaming and some theatrical versions. 99% is long form, 60, 90, 2-hour, 4-hour. I love working on documentaries, verite documentaries, archival, interview-based. Also do a lot of post-mixing of live performances, music from concerts, comedy, Broadway shows, dance. Recently finished a show called The Vote for American Experience. It'll be on PBS. A doc called Kill Chain. It's on HBO. Quite, you might want to check it out. It's about the hacking of the election. And just finished a program for Quibi, Nightgowns. Do a lot of work for Metropolitan Opera, and I'm currently working on, although they stopped shooting, Genius 3, the season 3 of Genius, which is featuring Aretha Franklin. What do I do for my client? It kind of depends on the client, but most of them don't work. They work on their film every day, but they work on it for 3 years, and they finally get to sound, and that's where I come in. And my job really is to help achieve their goal and support the message of the film. That usually means by respecting all the dialogue. What I really do is supervise, edit, and mix. We'll talk more later, I think, right?
Well, thanks, Ken. And last but not least, Lew Goldstein of Parabolic Post.
Just Parabolic, but that's fine. Hi, everyone. Lew Goldstein. I own a facility in New York City called Parabolic. Came into fruition in 2010. I've been cutting sound digitally since 1988, which has really kind of given me a chance to work literally on almost every nonlinear editing system that's ever been created. And there were a lot of them. Parabolic was built in 2010. We are primarily a audio post facility for picture. We do feature films and a lot of TV. Just prior to us closing for COVID-19, we had 4 scripted television series going on, 2 documentaries, and 2 feature films, which pretty much all came to a halt when this started. Luckily, we kind of saw the writing on the wall early, and we started kind of gearing up. We right now have 13 sound editors working remotely from their homes. So we geared up with a very large, secure portal system to be able to move data between all the editors, and as well as the re-recording mixers that are actually finally mixing the show. We actually just finished a ABC series that half of it was done within the studio and half of it was mixed remotely, as well as remote reviews. So we were able to finish off most of the work. One larger feature film that we were working on, a movie called In the Heights, stopped, and which we're now kind of trying to see about gearing back up. We had several series that said if we can figure out how to be able to record the ADR and group recordings for those shows, they would continue on. So we actually went through some serious contortions to work out a really reliable system for recording talent remotely, and especially trying to do group walla recordings. We were doing it across, 15 different locations simultaneously, which we worked out pretty well, and actually have 2 group sessions going on today, actually, as I'm speaking, and an ADR session going on as I'm speaking. It's funny because I'm actually able to do more work remotely. We have 1 ADR stage here at Parabolic. So primarily when we were doing everything in-house, we could only do 1 session at a time. And literally right now I have 3 sessions going on simultaneously. So I hate to say it, but there was some advantage to us starting to work remotely. It's not as fun. It's definitely much more enjoyable having everybody in the same room. And the same thing with our mix reviews. A Netflix series we just finished, we were doing almost 2 remote reviews a week on the one series. And as well as it was able to work, it really didn't have the same feel with everybody not collaborating. I mean, that was the reason I originally loved this business so much, is every job is completely different from a technological standpoint, from a creative standpoint, and you're working with different people and you're collaborating in different ways. As much fun as Zoom is, it's not being in the same room. So like I said, right now we have 13 sound editors working remotely. And I'm sure if you guys have more questions, I'll be happy to answer them later.
Stuff. That's fantastic. So what we're going to do now is we'll kind of move into more of we want to get the panel talking to you about the way they're working. We want them discussing with each other as well, because they're working in different facilities, different parts of New York and other parts of the world. So we want to be having a conversation about this. So with that in mind, if you can make sure you're thinking about maybe questions you might want to ask the panel, anything you're interested in. So if you can submit questions, as Greg already described on the Q&A. And what we'll do is Robert and I, we've got a couple of questions to sort of kick things off with, and hopefully start getting things moving. And as I say, we'll kind of move quickly into your questions. And as Greg already said, I'm sure there'll be tons of general Pro Tools questions and things that you might want to answer. We've got Jeff and Gil who are moderating the chat and can answer some of those. But we've got some very amazing, talented, experienced people here. So let's make the best use of those. So our first question then that we want to kind of put to everybody, and feel free to sort of jump in, whoever wants to answer first, is a nice general one to start off with, which is, can you tell us about the biggest challenges that you saw when you started working remotely?
To me, it was definitely moving data. It's when you have clients, there's just constant upload and download. You have clients feeding you material, which we put up on a large server system. Then the assistants, because every one of our jobs typically has a sound editor on it, at least one, an assistant that really kind of ingests all the material, takes the AAFs, does all the translation to that into Pro Tools sessions, sorts them out, cleans them up. A sound effects editor typically will come online. A dialogue editor will come online. Everybody needs to download the pieces of those AAFs from the client, depending on the project it is. You have music editors getting involved. So all of this material really has to be organized and then redistributed. So, to me, that was the biggest hurdle on how to accomplish that. We work with a system called Media Shuttle by Signient. And we were really able to design very specific collaborative portals, very secure collaborative portals for every one of our jobs specifically. So music editors could upload material, sound effects editors, when they're done cutting their sound effects, dialogue editors can move all their material. The assistants can then download that material, assemble mix sessions. And then eventually myself or Tom Ryan, who's the other mixer who works with me, would download, mix that material, prep it, and get it ready for a remote review with the clients. So that just in itself was an agonizing thought. And we had never done that kind of remote distribution of material before. And the clients that we work with all have their security issues, and we had to really be very tight on abiding by all the rules and how things were secure and password protected and all the individual systems that all the editors would have. So, that luckily we started that plan, the day I started getting a whiff that we're not going to be in this building, this is going to stop. And we had a choice of continuing on with the work that we had going on or just stopping completely. So luckily, pretty much up until last week, we were busy. We have not slowed down since. We're just starting to come into our lull as far as the work that has been shot. You know what I mean? It's, it's starting to run out from shooting to picture to sound editorial. So, to me, that was the biggest hurdle. The remote reviews and there were a lot of different methods of moving picture and data, especially on a very peer-to-peer kind of situation. But it was that mass storage of moving of raw material that to me was scary.
Yeah, I would say.
If I may jump in, it's just that Lew mentioned his challenges with media and moving media. At Harvard, I almost didn't have that problem because we are covering so many range of services. Moving media for us was something we already had in place.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge was for us is security. How do you protect all that data from, people now working from remote, having full access to it, but secure it from the rest of the outside world in such a way that nobody can see it. That was a real challenge to come across. And we found ways to do it where only the one that we want to have access to can access it whenever they need. We have different tools for it. It was very challenging and at some point was almost impossible, but working hard on it and finding with our IT team and the rest of the people who are controlling the network. It was something that we came across. Two other issues that we have challenged. We found the challenge to be almost as hard was remote reviews and ADR. And we can talk about it later. But as far as the remote reviews, I wanted to mention that it was a challenge because we were in the midst of working on two big shows. One of them was aired on HBO recently, so I can mention it. I know this much is true, where Mixer moved his mixing board and equipment into his house. We had to get him up and running very quickly in a matter of days because, as you know, HBO requires you to deliver the stuff very close to the air date, and we couldn't stop. We had one episode done in the studio and we had to continue working on the rest of the episodes from home. That required a very narrow window to set it up. And doing that, we had to provide a good, reliable way to stream the mix and take notes to a bunch of people at the same time. And finding a way to do it with low latency and real time was something that we worked on and figured it out, which is pretty cool. And I think it's going to be a way to work in the future as well. Now that people got used to work at home, I believe we're going to see more of it, even after this all COVID is going to go away.
Well, like I said, that's the whole thing is, especially with our group and ADR recording, it's going to be a while before talent actors are willing to go into, studios, even as things start lightening up more, now that they know that there are viable solutions where they don't have to go to a studio. I think a lot of them are going to stick for a while, just kind of trying to do it this way. So I think we have these environments and these methods that we're putting together right now, workflow wise, I think are going to be with us for a little while. I have a mix coming up in August that we're going to, I'm not sure if it's going to be done in New York or LA at this point, but the social distancing aspects of it, luckily it's in a very large mix environment, so it's going to be very easy to social distance. But when are we going to not be wearing masks and not staying 6 to 8 feet away? So
yeah, so Ken and Tom, do you want to just jump in there? Is there anything you want to kind of address on some of those challenges?
I'm not the big facility guy that Avi and Lew represent. I'm the small guy, and fortunately for me, I still have the security issues, but it's interesting. Luckily I had a year and about 16 months head start for working from home, and already set up the procedures and set up my business. And so literally this was not so, I didn't change anything. I used to do remote reviews at facilities, but the only thing that changed was in my workflow was literally the only thing that changed was everyone's schedule. That's in the audio. We know that that's probably the, before COVID and after COVID and during COVID, it's the biggest challenge is getting it scheduled. I'll have an AAF by Monday morning. Well, Monday morning turns into sometime Tuesday afternoon, and when you get it, it won't open. I mean that's now we're 3 days behind before we start. That hasn't changed at all, but it's become more difficult because even you say, I have a doc scheduled for start in August. They can't shoot interviews. They can't bring a crew, and no one will let a crew in to shoot an interview yet. It's still, so everything's on hold. And I think, Lew, I share with you, it was fine until now, but no one's making new,
we have a hole from when they start to shoot, when they edit, and then when it comes to us, and we're reaching the point that that is all run out. You know what I mean? Up until now, there have been plenty of shows that have been shot that was still an editorial, picture editorial, and then we're starting to come down our way. And, I know a lot of people that are working. I know a lot of Harbor. I know tons of jobs that they still are doing, and as well as we are. But that is now getting to the point of where it's going to start to trickle out. So we're getting to the end.
Yeah. Well, once you
hopefully, but even if they start shooting today, we have 3 months before that work would wind up getting to us. So, it's definitely an interesting time, and what you can keep going to keep people employed and, and keep the business going is a very interesting part right now.
Yeah. Tom, how about you?
So, I mean, obviously we've been running remotely from 2012. So our remote workflow was pretty established, to be honest. One issue that we did come across was due to everybody jumping to working from home, editors working from home, producers working from home, the residential broadband speeds were not up to scratch, basically, and you'd have to factor that in when you're doing projects, the fact that it takes 10 times as long to upload any sort of file. One workaround, we'd do the transcoding for a 264. We'd just do it here as opposed to sending us a DN HD file, an Avid codec file for the video. We'd just get a 264 and we'll do that ourselves to save on the time that it takes to upload the video file. But yeah, it was just factoring in that incredibly slow residential broadband speed. We're fine here. We've got a 1 gigabyte connection here, but it's them getting their content to us. Yeah, it took time.
Well, that's the one thing about having as many people as I have working out of their homes is not everybody has a gigabit. You know, in New York City and in the outlying areas, it's very easy to have a gigabit download. You know, but then you have a very, very slow upload. You know,
they throttle the upload. Yeah, exactly.
Totally throttle the upload unless you're a business client. So residential clients, you know, it's gig down. You know, maybe 200 up at best. Yeah, that was one of our bigger problems, especially with a lot of the remote reviews and a lot of the remote recordings, is being able to have the upload bandwidth to be able to have the different programs and websites that we work with to move audio and video. That upload speed that really becomes the bottleneck. So
yeah, absolutely.
Again, we tried to get all of our guys to upgrade their internet connections, which of course the facility paid for and maintains that for them. But you know, it's not easy. It just doesn't exist. Those kind of speeds don't exist like we have here. I mean, we have a redundant gigabit connection here that between 2 different service providers, so we never have a downtime. So we've got
some pretty good questions coming in from the audience. Maybe we could just
I want to mention
plan ones. Go ahead.
I want to mention one thing that I found to be interesting in this whole COVID workflow. So in normal working time, my job as a chief engineer is to support the mixers, editors, and all the guys who are amazing at what they do, but they have very minimal technical experience, and they shouldn't really deal with it, with challenges. And here suddenly I found myself in a situation where artists, named the mixers and the editors, are working in their own kind of cocoon place by themselves, and I have to support them remotely, except certain things you can't really do. You can log into their computer, you can set up things, you can move stuff for them, you can rename stuff, but there are things that you have to have the hands-on and the knowledge to do that. And I found that in many cases, like I can mention one because it's already announced, we were working on the Hamilton that is going to Disney. They came to us and they said, we want to have the Atmos version of it so we can air it. And we didn't have the home Atmos version. And suddenly the mixer had to go into the studio and create an Atmos version, which is by itself a task that requires a lot of skills, but the technical of setup and getting it all working, usually I would be there with him, and now I can't go into the same room where he is, or I can't send anybody else to do it. So I found that situation, now someone like Lew, it's like a second nature for him. He doesn't even, he's a man who can do it all. He runs a facility, he is a chief, he's an engineer, he's a mixer, he's an editor, he's a post supervisor, he's everything, but not everybody is like that. And I had to work with the mixers and bring them up to a level that they usually don't have to do. And that is one of the biggest change that I saw in this COVID,
well, it's funny
situation.
because in so much of the recording processes where you have an actor, and in the matters that we're doing it today, either you're sending them a recorder, or in our case, we're just sending them microphones that we will connect to and then do all the recording on our end. But you're asking people that up until now are so technically non-involved to, could you plug that interface into your laptop, and you're talking to them on a phone, and how's your level look on your interface and your mic? And they're just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Now, there are levels of extreme with that. And even a lot of my editors that are working at home, they're all pretty competent, but they've never had to really, install plugins or not all of them. Some, of course, are much more apt than others. But Avi's right. It's really hard when you can't just be like, let me just do that for you, because you can't. You can't go and and help people out at times.
So we're getting some questions from the audience. There's a couple of good ones here. One, I think people are looking for maybe a little bit more specifics of like how what's your kit and how you are actually, maybe the tools that you're using, the third-party tools. Of course, everyone's using Pro Tools, we know that, but you know, to you know, do a remote ADR session. You don't want to give away your secrets, huh?
I can talk about how we do it, and Lew can take over there. Right from the very beginning, we decided that we were in the middle of doing a show for HBO, like I mentioned, and they required a lot of voiceover recording plus loop group and regular ADR. And we had to come up with a solution. So together with one of the assistant editor, we came up with a solution where we built a rig in a Pelican case that has a computer, a Mac Mini, a microphone, an interface, and a screen, all packed and already set in the case. The case is not that big. It's about you know, a small suitcase size that can be shipped around with a 4/16 Sennheiser. And we installed Pro Tools on the Mac Mini, and we had our normal Pro Tools, ADR template that we use in the studio when we work there. We also installed a remote desktop software that allows us to connect to the rig, and a VPN firewall interface to get the security that we wanted. We ship it to the client. We also ship them instructions of the environment they need to use in the room. We tell them not to use their bathrooms. We ask them to use like a room that has a lot of acoustic cushioning, and use blankets sometimes. And in some cases, I had the talent cover himself with a blanket all the way through. Our engineer will log into the computer. All they have to do at their end is plug it to the power and their router, and connect. Once the connection is established through the VPN, our engineer will take over control and run the Pro Tools locally in their space. So latency is not an issue, recording is not an issue, and full control. And the data, as you know, we don't need high bandwidth in order to control remote desktop from afar. So we're not moving data at that point. And we do the session just like in a studio. We have a bunch of kits that we send around. We have one in Europe, in the UK. We have 3 in the US, and we have other mobile solutions.
You may have said, actually, I think people are asking about specifically what's in the kit that you send out.
It's a Mac Mini with a FireWire interface that has stereo in, a Sennheiser 4/16, a 24-inch monitor, and a firewall WatchGuard interface.
Cool.
That's all there is. We also have a lavalier option for it, and headphones, of course. A good set of headphones, Sennheiser 280 HD.
What other ADR solutions have we got out
We
there?
actually started working with a company out of London and actually kind of developed our own. It was originally based on a blogging audio platform. And we actually kind of came up with a plugin to be able to interface Pro Tools directly to Chrome. So we're able to move, again, using, I think I mentioned earlier about the Opus codec, that we're able to move at a very low bit rate, very high quality, low latency audio just through Chrome itself. So between that, what we're basically doing is we're just sending microphones, USB microphones, which I went on a rampage at the very beginning of COVID-19 and bought every single USB microphone I could possibly find. We're up to about 25 right now, which literally, and I think I mentioned earlier when we were talking that finding USB microphones right now decent ones are like finding toilet paper. You know, the Audio-Technica 2020s and all of these different microphones that are actually very good sounding, very easy to use microphones are impossible to find. So we got as many as we physically could. And, you know, we wanted to make a system that was as easy for people that are very non-technical as physically possible. So basically people just need to log into our website through Chrome, and we can connect to them and stream their audio and talk to them. We can send them beeps. We've been working with several different platforms for sync audio, sync video, Zoom being one of them. And again, we're able to, we came up with a method to be able to attach the Avid video engine of Pro Tools directly to the input of the streaming system of Zoom. So we can, it's not amazing looking and there is some latency, but it's more than enough, especially for group sessions and ADR sessions. It works well, but all the recording is done on our end. We're not asking any talent on the other side to do any recording. So our ADR sessions and our group sessions just work like any other session. It's just everybody is in a different location. And, you know, it has its pitfalls. It's, again, working with the internet is really, for audio, forget about video, but for audio, is so dependent on upload and download speeds. We recently did a group recording session with 15 different individuals recording simultaneously. And, you know, our engineers have to go through each person, set their levels, which we can do somewhat on our end, but mostly have to have the talent set their individual levels. And every now and then, one of them has, you know, a incredibly slow upload speed. So you get a glitch, you know. So when you're doing 15 people, it's really interesting on the mishmash of bandwidths from everybody that you're recording with. But, you know, it works as well as you could possibly hope for in the environment that we're trying to get this stuff done. You know, group was the big one. We originally started out by sending Zoom recorders and, you know, and that was just troubling to me to be able to try to get. And one of the shows for Netflix that we were doing were basically, if you could figure this out, so this is, you have a reasonable solution for recording this, we will continue working. And I wanted the job to continue going. So I literally spent hundreds of hours trying to come up with different methods. I worked with a piece of software out of Oklahoma, which is a really nice app for moving 64 channels of audio. I think it's called Intercom Connect. It was actually made for an intercom system for sports. You know, big sports game, you got all the cameramen and stuff like that. They're using this IP-based audio for their intercom systems, and it's able to move audio, 64 channels of audio at low latency across.
What kind of latency are we talking about, Lou?
And that program is about 20 milliseconds to 40 milliseconds, depending again upon your, you know, all the different programs that I worked with. And there's some wonderful jam. There's a, you know, I started researching on how musicians are collaborating with themselves, with other musicians, and that requires very, very low latency. The system we're working with isn't that low latency. We're typically dealing with below 200 milliseconds, which again is about 8 frames, I think.
And that's just for audio. What about with
just audio?
Video.
Well, it kind of balances out. The video Zoom's latency is really, really good. So they kind of equal out to each other, and we're pretty much kind of in sync. You know, we're working now, and we're moving into trying to work more with some hardware encoders using streaming services like Wowza, which is a very low latency streaming service for enterprise based applications. But this way you can use a streaming hardware encoder and go one to many, which is, you know, so many of the things like Source Connect and things like that exist are really peer-to-peer kind of scenarios. And so much of the work that we're doing is usually one to many. An engineer going out will have 15 people on for a Walla recording, but then you'll also have observers, you know, you'll have the director, you'll have a sound supervisor, you'll have, you know, so they have to be part of the collaboration at the same time. which was hard at first because when we first developed our system, it was all one. And if there was a recording going on and, you know, the director just decided to open a can of tuna and start eating lunch, it got into the recording, which has happened. And we've now split our system where we have separate paths for talent and observers. So, you know, this way the talent is the only one that's going. And again, we're doing all the recording in Pro Tools like a normal record session to a single track. We were trying to do multi-track recordings with it for a while, which worked, but again, the bandwidth that people had just didn't allow it to really be sustainable. So now we can bring many voices or many recordings in and go to a single record track. And then we also have a separate system for the observers. So everybody is hearing each other and able to talk to each other, but they're not going to the record track. Because trying to tell everybody to mute their mic before a recording, nobody did it. So it's been a real learning curve. You know, again, we started out doing our remote mix reviews, and it was a question I saw earlier I wanted to mention. You know, somebody had asked about, are we doing remote mix reviews stereo or 5.1? And, you know, we finished a show for ABC and all these Netflix shows. And what really has come out of this is we're doing basically everything stereo for these people to listen to. And I have, you know, a couple of clients that have found it so easy to, you know, monitor the mix review on a set of headphones. And then he asks, well, can you play that scene back again? And he unplugs the headphones and he listens to it on the speakers on his laptop, which is how we're streaming him stuff. And then he will make some adjustments depending on how he heard things between his headphones and his laptop. Then he was like, oh, let me go get my iPad for a second. So, you know, our mix reviews have actually gotten longer because the clients are now realizing in these remotes, well, I can listen to this on a whole bunch of different platforms that the end audience is going to see this on, you know. So a couple of them have really enjoyed it just from that fact that they've heard it across a whole gambit of devices.
You know, I definitely want to dig into the review and approval bit, but I just, whilst can we just tie off maybe with Tom and Ken, have you got any more sort of to add on the ADR side, any different workflows that you might want to talk about?
I'm not in that business anymore, thank God.
No, all our ADR sessions, we've actually had talent attending the studio here safely, obviously, on our sanitized ADR room, basically. So we've been doing that, and then using various platforms to stream it out, Zoom and all the other ones to the producers, etc. So
should we jump onto review and approval then? I mean, maybe Tom, you want to kind of start with that? Maybe talk about some of the tools you've been using and how it works for you.
So one of the new platforms we've just started using for live reviews is a platform called Evercast, who you might have heard of, which prior to using that, we were using Source Live for live reviews, but the latency is an issue.
Source Live was like, could be up to 10 seconds of latency.
That is a massive issue. It's not real time, is it?
I had to stop. When I stopped playing a mix, I would have to count to 10 before I could talk to the client. Because if I started talking too early, I was talking over what they were still listening to.
It doesn't make for a very fluid session. It's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So, you know, it had its uses, but we weren't pushing it that hard because it just wasn't a very fluid session. And then discovered Evercast, and the latency on that is amazing, actually, within 200 milliseconds. And the quality as well is phenomenal. You know, I capture my video screen and then Source Nexus the mix over to the Evercast platform, or EBS is what they use to capture it, and then that gets sent to an Evercast room, which the client then logs into and can watch the stream, and then we do all the conferencing through that as well. So the conferencing is actually a separate element to the stream, which is great, because obviously in the conferencing side of it you have noise cancellation, which makes all the audio sound horrendous. And so, yeah, Evercast it's been amazing. It's a really, really, really great platform for using. So that's what we've jumped over to as a sort of new tool. And then offline reviews is a platform called Frame.io, which we used, which we were previously using a different platform. And then I sort of investigated Frame.io, and a lot of video editors use it, so they're very familiar with it as a platform, and it offered a bit more functionality than the previous platform we were using, and so we jumped over to that as a platform for offline reviews. Again, it has lots of the similar functionality to the previous platform I was using, which was marking up picture, frames, time accurate, note stamping, sort of real-time chat. So when they add notes, they pop up on almost real time. It's not like a real-time review tool, but the notes come up straight away. I could see them, address them, upload a new mix, and then we go there back and forth. So yeah, they're the two main platforms I use for review and feedback.
When you were using Evercast, was there a limit to the amount of people it could stream out to who could see live?
There is. So I think it's around about 10. So not that great for ADR.
10's still pretty good.
Yeah, 10's still pretty good. So yeah, that's not too bad. But yeah, it's.
And they would all have the similar latency of the. Yeah.
They would. Yeah, they'd all have similar latency, and because it shows you how many frames have dropped as well. It just in terms of the glitchiness of it, it was really, really fluid in terms of there was hardly any glitches. Every now and again, occasionally, as you would expect when you're sending audio down the line, but in general, it works seamlessly.
How many channels of audio you support there?
At the moment, it's only stereo, so that's
okay. So for that reason, right? For that reason, I decided to use service by Streambox.
Yes.
And Streambox has a variety of solutions. Some of them are hardware dependent. Some of them are software only. For the most part, we use the software only. I have a Mac Mini set up with a capturing Blackmagic card that allows you to capture the SDI signal that you send to the projector, and using an embedder for the audio out of the Pro Tools rig or the console. SDI embedder, any or HDMI, any Blackmagic is supported by it. And then if you use a peer-to-peer, if you want to have a very low latency and it's one attendee, then you use a peer-to-peer mode, and it's below like 40. It's around 40 to 50 milliseconds. That's but great. if you want to do a multicast, where in some cases I had 14 viewers, you have to use a cloud service that has a little longer latency, and it has some limitations because their servers, and they have servers all over the world, were designed for, in a normal time, to support 15, 16 different sessions. Suddenly they told us they were seeing 100, 150 on each server. So their base servers started to get clogged with data, and we would have to go and monitor the particular server that was available at the time. So for certain sessions in the afternoon, I would use a server in the UK, even though the viewer was in the West Coast. I was in the East Coast, the server is in the UK, and the viewer is in LA. At some cases, I use a server in Japan. It was pretty interesting. One issue that I had with it, constantly, almost in every situation, was because of the video sync feature in Pro Tools, where we had to apply a certain sync for, correcting the projector.
Delay compensation.
Delay compensation. No, not delay compensation. The video sync delay. Because of the time it takes for the projector to render the picture, we know there is like a 2 to 4 frames sometimes. That feed to Streambox with the audio coming straight out of the I/O was always out of sync. And in order, and the video would be ahead of the audio. For that reason, it's not, we can delay the audio as much as we want very easily, but delaying the video start to be costly. It's not impossible, but it is possible. So the solution for it was, and what wasn't always a great solution, was to create a duplicate track of the video and move it by the amount that was the sync required. But that means that the mixer would be out of sync. And if you do just one pass to review, it's not the end of the world. But if you do all day long, which we had hundreds of hours with one particular director that was constantly on the show watching it, it's not a very pleasant experience. I wish there was a solution for it.
If I may, I mean, what you guys have all addressed, and Lew already started to address this, getting it to the client is one thing, but how they listen to it is the other issue, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm listening on headphones at home, and you have three different people are watching it simultaneously, one on headphones, one God knows how. And
we started sending out headphones too, so we
that's what I did.
To listen on. And then they just, like I said, they discovered that they pull their headphone jack out, they could hear it on their laptop.
Well, day one, you got notes on the first pass. I listened on my headphones, and oh no, I listened on my TV. Is I gonna undo all those notes?
We've done on some shows. I got 4 mix passes because they were like, it sounded great on my headphones, but I'm losing the music on my my iPad. Can we go back and sure, whatever you want, we'll go back and do it.
So there really is. There's no replacing having everybody in the same room.
That was the big
discussing the same notes on the same references, and us leading them by the nose, saying, no, trust what you hear here, and trust me that it'll sound fine on the air, right?
Unless you charge by the hour.
On the other hand, it's very easy to say, hey, it sounds good here. Why don't you come over here and hear it? Suddenly you have an excuse. But just like Lew said, I bought like 12 sets of headphones for one project. Same type of headphones, send it to all the clients, make sure. And in the studio, the mixer was monitoring on the same headphones.
Right.
I'm starting a show soon where I'm sending speakers, the same speakers.
Yeah, I thought about that, but to a director in LA, I was gonna send them a 5.1 setup. And but he's like, I don't want that in my house. I'll go to a studio in LA.
So Lew, I'm sending a sound bar.
Oh.
Yeah.
An Atmos sound bar.
Which one? Sonos just came out with one.
Which one? The Samsung.
I wasn't sure if it was somebody is making or coming out with an Atmos soundbar that is going to have AAS in.
Clips.
Was it?
Clips.
Oh, really? I thought it was Sennheiser or something. But didn't need an encoded signal going in. It was just going to need like an AAS in of 7.1.4, and it would actually do the work inside.
And MPEG 4. We're running a little bit over here.
MPEG 4, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
bars right now you can feed MPEG 4, and it will do the conversion.
We're running a little bit over. If it's okay, we'd like to continue with this. I mean, as long as our gracious guests are okay for a few more minutes, if it's okay with everybody.
I have an antibody test at some point today, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It'll wait.
Dave, any questions there that have kind of hit you from the that have come in from the folks maybe not on Zoom that you see in the chat window?
There's loads of good stuff coming in. I guess some specific questions to some of you about some of the ways that you're working to do with. Actually, maybe you could talk a little bit about, again, remote workflows. Where are you getting people to record a local backup, or are you relying on sort of remote recordings? How do you sort of make sure that you're getting what you need to get and keeping it the quality that it needs to be?
So in our ADR kit, we send the audio into a separate hard drive partition using just a regular capturing audio. So and it's running in real time. It's a standalone application, but we also have a separate feed to a different person in the session, getting it through Source Connect and also now. And that's the only purpose for it, is that he can monitor it at full bandwidth and record it for a backup. That's our solution.
Yeah, we're just taking our feed straight from the internet, which like I said, we have had dropouts on occasions, but we try to do as many takes as we can to be able to cut around that if need be. We're not doing any local. Again, we were trying to limit the amount of work that was done on the talent side. You know, it could have problems. It has had some, but not a lot. So, I mean, Avi's solution of being able to have a local record, you know, definitely has some great benefits as far as, you know, just making sure you have a good, clean recording. We had some spikes, and again, it depends on the talent's upload speeds, but it hasn't been enough to really cause a problem as of yet. So we're not really doing any kind of local recording.
Cool. There are a couple of questions actually around, there's a little bit of interest around whether any of you are using Pro Tools Cloud Collaboration. Obviously something's been in the software a while, maybe more sort of slanted towards music production, but is it something that you've made use of in your workflow at all?
I don't know. I haven't used it as of yet.
I've had a bit of experience with it for short form content when I've been working with a composer who's using Pro Tools. We've had used it for that, but only on a short form basis. I'm not sure I'd like to use it for long form stuff, just because I think the sessions end up being too complex, and yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want to use it for that. But for short form, it's worked great.
Yeah, the size of the sessions that we deal with is like impossible to use the collaborations. The amount of media and tracks and voices and plugins, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, but yeah, for straightforward stuff like short form, when you've got the composer doing their stuff, then yeah, it makes it a little bit quicker than sending stuff, and then yeah, we can just relink it quite quickly. So yeah, it works well for that.
Well, you know, we have actually, you know, some folks that are starting to kind of drop off at this point. We've gone over an hour, but we did have one wrap-up question that would be, I think it would be great if each one of our guests could maybe, you know, address, which is, you know, how do you see this, you know, COVID-19 pandemic and all of the upheaval that it's caused changing the future of Post?
Well, people getting used to it. Like I said, you know, we've done mixed reviews where clients are just like, yeah, I just want to go back and look at that one scene again. And everybody logs in, everybody starts doing it. You know, they don't have to book a session. They don't have to travel. It worries me sometimes that some clients might get too used to working out of their house and not wanting to, you know, come into the studio and all sit and, you know, so that worries me.
I think there is no going back, to be honest with you. We're going to go back and work from, you know, the home base in the studios, but and us, the mixers, editors, the post community, we would want the client to come in so we can control the environment and what they hear and what they experience, and the collaborations, of course. But from the client, the artist, the talent, how should I say, the director or the crew, I'll call them the clients. They would probably want to stay home and stay away and deal with other projects that they're on, and do as much as they can from remote. So I think we opened the door opened for us, and there's no going back to full work, you know, full mode the way it used to be. I kind of say all the time, this is almost different, but almost the same as after September 11. all the changes that we went through and where it took us from securities and regulations, we're going through the same thing. We were forced into this situation, and I don't think there is going back. So it's a new way of working, new world, and we need to adapt to it. And the sooner we adapt to it, the better we're going to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just going to sort of echo that. I mean, I think we're going to see a reduction in the size, the real estate that people are owning. Production companies and post houses are going to be owning in expensive hotspots like Soho in London, because I think after this has opened up producers' eyes to seeing what can be done remotely, and there's going to be less demand for attended sessions. As we've all said, I think attended sessions will not go away when we're allowed to do them safely, because they are the best way to collaborate. And
theatrical market, it'll probably stick for
for sure,
having a nice size,
absolutely
mixed environment will
definitely.
But a lot of the smaller little TV rooms to be able to have,
yeah. Exactly, they can all be done. That can all be done remotely, and for this smaller, lower budget stuff, then why wouldn't they? And I think this has just propelled the fact and demonstrated to producers and content creators that it's all possible. And it's just
as I sit in a very large mixed environment, that the only person here is me, and the only person who's been here for the last 3 months is me. So.
I would just throw out that I think it's a time to sort of, you can look at all the bad parts of it, but it's also a good time to sort of re-examine how we've been doing work and why we do it. And maybe it's a good time to change some of the things that we've been doing. I know that, I've been thinking about it, like, why did I start working remotely? Well, because I wanted to, or because I had to. Is this a temporary move? Is this a permanent move? Are we going to see more people wanting to work from home? I mean, we've always been talking about the client, but are we going to see more editors and mixers saying, I made that choice. I'm in the city doing reviews maybe 3 days a month, and I couldn't be happier. But that's just because I don't want to be in the facility business anymore. But that's not a knock on people who are in the facility business. It's just my choice. But I think I would just suggest that people, take a little time off. If you've been working, take some time off. If you haven't, let's hope you get busy. But I've used this time to try new software, read a manual of a piece of equipment that I thought I knew inside out. And I've been demoing, thank you, Robert, demoing some gear and making some purchases. And I think we're going to reinvent how we do this, or just at least adjust to it. But I don't think we're going back to the old way. It's just not going to happen.
Definitely not.
Some of my guys, as many people have working off-site, some really miss coming in and collaborating. Some are like, I'm fine with this.
Right. I think we've all said you can't change the collaborative thing. This dialogue's okay, but we're stepping on each other. But there's something to be said with eye contact and human.
Well, like you said earlier about everybody being in the same room, hearing the same sound simultaneously, sitting back and listening to a final playback. And everybody being like, that's good. So
I wish it was always that easy. Everybody, look, come on. You take 10 people in a room and you get 10 different opinions. That's your magic as a mixer. To make everybody feel that they get what they want. Yes, you're the only one who knows what it is.
The amount of directors I've had have been like, yeah, I don't know if that's right, but I don't have great hearing anyway, so you decide. Oh, really?
The beauty of Zoom is that you can mute all of those criticisms out. No problem.
Just watch them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, really appreciate the four of you taking this time. Really appreciate it. It's been a really interesting conversation. We've covered loads of ground. I'm sure Robert will echo that as well. So
Excellent.
we'd hand over to Greg, I think, to wrap things up.
Yeah, thank you guys. What an amazing presentation. Thank you guys so much for your time, for your talent, and just a lot of thanks flowing from the community. Here in Zoom, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all over the place. Just so much really great and compelling information. So thank you guys very much. Robert, Dave, thank you guys for moderating and hosting. Gil, Jeff, and all of our moderators from the Avid team on all the other social platforms. Thank you. There's a lot more that we're going to be, we're going to continue this series. So, we'll be announcing the next one shortly. But again, thank you guys so very much. We had some really great, amazing questions come in. We couldn't get to all of them. There's still a ton of them that we weren't able to get to. However, some of the stuff, there was some information that some of you were asking about that was kind of talked about here in the session. We are going to have this available on demand soon. So make sure you look out for that. We'll be sending out an email for those of you who have registered. But if not, if you weren't registered and you were watching it on one of the other social platforms, you can just check back with us here in the next day or so, and we should be able to have that available on demand. Again, to our guests, thank you very, very much. To everyone all around the world, please continue to stay safe. You can certainly see that even with all of the amazing experts we have, we're all kind of in this together, all trying to figure it out. But we've got some great folks helping to lead the charge. So again, thank you all. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.